Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Thomas Ramsøy, founder and CEO of Neurons. Thomas, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Ben. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So, hey, let's start this out. Tell us a little bit about your background in SaaS.
Yeah, so the background in SaaS started, all the way back to doing, my own background is neuroscience and psychology. So that's where it all started. So I have a kind of pretty hefty, deep tech and deep science background. There was a realization when I started that we needed to, marketing was in a crisis, that we couldn't just ask people questions with focus groups and surveys and interviews, that there was a need for a kind of different data point. So I started kind of dabbling into the space, and that becomes like a whole mix of science, but also technology, because the recent kind of advances in neuroscience hinges a lot on, recent advancement in technology as well. So, when we started the company, we started to kind of focus on how can we not only kind of do the deep tech, but how can we make that scalable? And that was kind of the big challenge. So ever since the beginning, we started doing some computational software to see, are people really interested in that? We tried to make some of these solutions available through platforms. So back in 2013, 14, for example, try to make platforms that people can log in, and they could change their, upload their materials and have it tested on the fly, basically, or through different panels, kind of neural panels, if you like. The market wasn't really ready for it at that point, but we see today that has changed. So with all that, all the challenges at that time, like 10 years ago, you can imagine that the SaaS journey has been long. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And so your background, is it like educationally, like a science background or tech, or tell us a little bit more about your background there?
Sure. I actually have a pretty kind of mixed background. I did kind of, first of all, business and administration first in Norway before I moved to Denmark, and did and completed my psychology and neuropsychology degree. So I worked many years as a clinical neuropsychologist, helping patients, dementias and strokes and things like that, both in terms of assessment. So the whole element of learning what is a good score, what is a good metric, how can we use that to predict an outcome, for example. That's kind of been my bread and butter for quite some time. And then I did a PhD in neurobiology, and neuroimaging, as it's called. So using these kind of brain scanners in different types. So I used MRIs or fMRIs to look at brain activity, to study different types of emotional and cognitive responses in people, and also looking at decision making more and more. So then after my PhD, I went straight. My postdoc basically became kind of starting off and heading a center for what's called Center for Decision Neuroscience, which is trying to understand the brain mechanisms underlying our choices, and not in kind of a artificial test environment, but more in kind of real life situations. So we had a very tight collaboration with the Danish Tech University here in Copenhagen to kind of challenge what is doable. Can we bring a brain scanner into the store environment, for example? So that was some of the early strides we made there. So always from the beginning, I've been working very much on kind of hard science, but also technology innovation, but also trying to make that accessible and understandable and useful for commercial companies.
Wow. Yeah. So technical background, but more on the science side versus, say, software engineering. Really interesting. So tell us a little bit about what Neurons does.
Yeah, so Neurons has, when we started, the focus was basically on building good metrics using neuroscience that were useful for companies. So when you want to test an ad, for example, do people see it? Do they respond emotionally to it? Do they understand it? And do they, will they remember it and act on it? So we came up with a lot of different kind of measures based on brain scanning and eye tracking that could answer those questions and turn that around into something useful for the clients. Of course, that's a fairly expensive approach, right? It costs something like $30,000 for a study, and it takes you weeks, and you have to actually understand the work and things like that. So what we try to do at the same time was also to build this in parallel, this kind of online presence of, what if you can upload an image and get a prediction of, what people will pay attention to. In the beginning, I would say, 10 years ago, we didn't really have the AI revolution we see today. We had a lot of data, but in recent years, we realized that we could actually use the vast amount of data that we had to basically kind of create these AI tools that now can predict, just within seconds, actually, what we normally would use, weeks to measure. So now what we are doing is that we have a whole kind of SaaS business now that is taking over, so to speak. We have the neuroscience at the foundation. We're building SaaS products that are, allowing people to predict how people will respond to anything from a website to a packaging to an ad on different social media, for example, just within seconds.
Wow, yeah, really interesting. So like you said, you're trying to make this like that science scalable and also say affordable, shorten that time frame from the weeks of studies that are expensive to make this scalable. So what would be a use case, like a big, say, a consumer brand, I don't know, Procter and Gamble, things, are you targeting these large enterprises, these large consumer enterprises, or tell us a little bit about a use case?
Yeah, so we actually the company was actually even named by one of the people we started working with initially from Lowe's, the home improvement company.
Yeah,
started working very closely with, home improvement and DIY companies from day one. And they, because of the technology and the science being fairly complex and taking time, it also meant that we were approaching companies that had a fairly good budget for doing this type of research, and also were risk seeking into risk willingness was high, so to speak, to allow these studies to run to completion. So I think that that was kind of in the beginning, and that also perpetuated to us talking a lot to the Fortune 500 companies in the beginning. Now we see a total shift in that. We see that we're still, talking to the same companies, and they're adopting the SaaS technologies that we have, but we also are approaching the SMEs and, a vast, much bigger part of the market, because now this technology becomes, for a fraction of the cost, you can get full access to this, unlimited access to it. So now we have a different strategy that we are still talking to the bigger companies. We're approaching the SME market. And then there's a third type of market where we're talking to, companies that have their own platforms. So we can loop in kind of an API into their platform.
Oh, wow. So this helps, like, are you working then with their sales and marketing, maybe even product teams, to just refine that messaging, and how it's presented and the copy and colors, I don't know, images, just to improve that, I guess, ad experience, which ultimately, they hope will, it result in more revenue?
Yeah, if you take the ad market, for example, we might think that advertising is just, it's solved. You just do it this way, and everything is hunky-dory. Just everyone clicks on that button. It just doesn't work that way. There's an old saying in marketing from a guy called Paul Wanamaker. He said, half of my marketing budget is wasted. I just don't know which half it is. And that still holds up. I think that when we talk about designers, when we talk about brand owners, we talk about marketeers and CMOs, for example, we see that there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of A/B testing, just see what sticks, so to speak. So what we hear again and again is that people in the marketing industry, there's basically just putting a lot of stuff out there and seeing what sticks. They don't even know which social media should it be on. What we are offering is that you can use this tool as an early betting tool. So you can say, okay, we need to do a design, while we are designing the ad, for example, let's try it out. Let's try 4, 5, 10 different versions out and see, do we get attention to the brand that we want? Do we, if there's a call to action, for example, do people actually see it in the first place? And also, how are they responding emotionally to that? And so some of the solutions that we have will actually answer that in just 10, 15 seconds. Yeah,
wow, I love that. So what year was your company founded?
So formally, we were founded in 2013.
Okay.
So that was, I had a sole proprietorship before that, but that was turned into Neurons Inc. But the formal date is January 1st, 2013. So we're hitting the 10-year anniversary here in January 1st.
That's great. Congratulations. And did it start as a software, say, SaaS company, or was it more like services that evolved into a SaaS platform?
Definitely started as a consultancy.
Yeah.
In the beginning, kind of bespoke solutions and things like that. But even then, we had, part of the, let's put it this way. I had one of the head of international research for Lowe's. He came visiting me while I was at the Copenhagen Business School, a professor there. I was just dabbling in some MATLAB code and trying out, seeing if some of these recent models could predict visual attention. He asked, what is that? It's Yeah, well, it's kind of just a heat map that tries to explain or to predict where people are going to look. It's like, okay, I need that. So it all actually started in, me providing him with a Dropbox that he could just drop some images in, and that will be grabbed by my computer and analyze it, throw it back in a different folder. That's how it started in 2013 as well. So it's been kind of a parallel journey. So I wouldn't say that we were not at any point doing any kind of SaaS business, but it's, as you probably heard many people before, it's kind of dabbling in this space for quite some time, and now it's kind of kicking off, right?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, right? I've got a Home Depot around the corner, a Lowe's around the corner, and you think of these big box stores and just moving their product, but really all that stuff that goes underneath in the operations of just how they're trying to figure out consumer behavior is really fascinating.
Exactly.
And now, where is your company located then?
So our headquarters is in Copenhagen in Denmark, but we have offices in Japan, or also representations in Japan, Australia, India, Turkey, Italy, Brazil, and the US. So it's quite broad out. We've been since day one. The vast majority of our work has been in the US.
Okay, vast majority in the US. Okay, and tell us about your team size. How many staff do you have?
Yeah, it's changing by the day almost, I feel. So it's right now we are, I think it says 88 people. If you take the hourly paid people, we're at 97 people, I think.
Okay. So about 88, maybe FTEs, but around 97 total heads. Okay.
Yeah, and out of that, we're like, in the science team alone, which is part of the pride here, is part of the kind of the workhorse is 25, 27 people.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me, so I'm guessing a product like this, right? A lot of tech folks, engineers to get this product up and running and improve it over time then.
Yeah, you can say that our approach has since the beginning. We, instead of going the kind of the black box route, we chose from the beginning to say we want to have a fully transparent model as far as we can go, right? So we have focused more on having what's called kind of protective or defensive publications. That means that we actually publish in scientific journals, in leading scientific journals, some of the metrics we have, and say, we're the best at doing this. You should come to us, because why go, to another vendor that keeps a kind of black box when you can come to us where everything is known, right? I
love that. And tell us anything you want to share around your revenue range, your ARR, or general scale there.
Yeah, sure. So we expect, so right now we're about 1.3, 1.5 in the euros, million euros in ARR. We expect end of year to be up towards the 2.0 million euros. And then next summer, we are expecting something like 5 million euros by mid-year.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
It's pretty aggressive, but we're hitting the marks still. So that's even in this environment, we're still hitting it. So
yeah, that's great. Hitting those plan numbers, those quarterly numbers. I love it. So you recently raised some money. So it looks like you just raised 6 million euros seed round. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. 6.08 million euros, that is. So
okay. Yeah. And was that your first raise, or had you raised before?
We had raised before a kind of pre-seed round. So this was it's a seed round. And so in total, we have raised 7 million euros and then some venture debt.
Okay. Plus venture debt. And then what did you see? Like, what was happening in the business or in the market? Did you see any triggers or milestones that said, hey, we're ready for a raise because we feel like, hey, we can really deploy this capital well? What did you see that said, hey, it's time to raise a significant round?
Yeah, I think that it all came back to, this kind of initial market fit. So it's a product market fit that we saw that, as I mentioned before, is that the market wasn't really ready when we tried out this early on for having kind of platform accessibility. People weren't really used to do that. What we've seen is that we've seen this kind of platform revolution, right? Is that people are just so used to using platforms, both as a B2C client, but also a customer, but also as a B2B client, right? So people are just getting used to platforms. And I saw that at the same time that we saw that movement, we've also seen that people see the added value, so to speak. And the typical kind of feedback we got from clients, our prospective clients, was that, this is amazing. Why haven't I heard about this before? I just need it. Can I please have it now, right? So just an obvious fit for our product at this time that probably wasn't there 3-4 years ago. So we basically wanted to add fuel to that growth. That was kind of the idea behind it.
Okay, so we're interested because, right, a lot of people have different definitions for product market fit, seeking that elusive fit. And so you just saw it through prospect feedback, having those prospect calls, those sales calls, and just that initial reaction, I'm guessing for the most part was like, wow, this is a great product. How do I sign up?
Yeah, you can see that we have the easiest time hiring salespeople because they go on a single. We have people coming in on the first day, they actually land the first deal. Because it's such a kind of a self-selling product at this time that it's very intuitive. You go online, you get a heat map back, you can see exactly what people will pay attention to and not pay attention to, and how they will respond as well. And it's just very intuitive for people to use, and it just turns around to an ARR for them as well.
Yeah, so that visual demonstration really kind of versus just talking in some PowerPoint slides, just showing something.
Science, man, it's so hard.
Yeah.
So this is very intuitive. It's very forgiving. So yeah.
Yeah, and then tell us a little bit about you mentioned sales reps. So what is the current go-to-market motion? Is that outbound, cold calling? How are you reaching your prospects?
Yeah, it's a good combination. We actually got a little bit late kicked off with the marketing properly. So that meant that a lot of outbound in the beginning. We have a extremely well-performing sales engine, and the whole sales team has been ramped up. The usual SDRs and the AEs and things like that. So they're performing very well and extremely well on outbounds. But now we're also, we're catching up on the marketing. So it's now becoming much more like a good blend of inbound and outbounds.
Okay. And what's like an average deal size that these reps are selling?
15 to 20,000 euros ish.
Okay. 15 to 20,000 euros. Okay.
That's kind of the normal size, but then
normal, yeah.
It can be bigger because, sometimes you have, larger clients that want to have bigger teams, that want to have a package that has more parts, so to speak. But for the SMEs, for example, that would be typically 15 to 20,000 euros. Okay.
And are these tell us a little bit about the sales cycle, right? You're talking like Fortune 500 large global organizations. I mean, is this, do they see your heat map and it's like, hey, let's sign up, quick sales cycle, or does it take a couple months to work through their procurement process?
Yeah, the behemoths are typically the slowest ones, right?
Yeah.
The super tankers, and you need to go through, legal hoops, and it's just the usual. And I think that is, these days we've seen that the legal teams actually are even slower than before, for some reason. But I think that the SMEs are just turning things around very quickly.
Yep.
And I think that the actual time is just a matter of just a few weeks, actually, from the initial contact to the actual sales. So it's a very short sales cycle for this type of deal size and this type of complexity, if you like.
Yeah, really interesting. And are you selling then annual contracts, multi-year contracts then?
Yeah, it's a typical annual project, or contract, but it does depend on the type of client we're working with. So for some of the bigger companies, for example, they tend to be multi-year.
Okay. And then your pricing model for this, is this kind of like a usage, how much they push through your platform, a fixed price per month? Tell us a little bit about the pricing.
Sure. We have two kind of main SaaS products. So we have one which we call Predict, and that's as the name says, it's you go to the platform and you predict whatever the client the customer will respond to. That's an unlimited use. So it's a one-off annual cost, and you get 5 seats typically for about 20,000 euros. And then as you go, you are then, it's unlimited use for images and videos. Then we have the second part, which is what we call Explore. So this is where you want to test people, you want to do it in an online forum, you want to test people for their subconscious responses. And we have some solutions for that. We are using panel testing, but in addition to asking questions, we're giving them tasks so we can know exactly, does this ad lead to an increase in a certain association to my brand, for example. That takes 3 days, for example, for an answer to get through. Typically, that would take weeks again. That model is you buy for a kind of a credit system. So you typically buy 10 to 12 credits per year, and then it's an annual renewal. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And then you just raised the 6 million euros. Any tips or tricks or lessons or painful moments that you can share with founders listening to help them out in their fundraising journey? Sure. I think there's 2 types of learnings. One is the actual funding round itself, and then the second is how how are you spending your money? How are you actually building, how are you growing your SaaS business? If you take kind of the funding round, I think that what we have seen, I think our transparency model actually comes, is very beneficial for us in the end. We've from day one, we just say, honesty, transparency are key values that we cherish. And I think that if we have challenges, we will be upfront about it and say, these are some of the things that we are, battling with these days, and these are the initiatives we have. It makes it much easier to actually talk more frankly. There's no surprises in the conversations we're having, and you're not bringing anything late to the table either. And it's not nothing to hide, so to speak, doing a DD process, for example. So there's just tons of things that is learning in that. That's the first thing. The second is that, start earlier than you think for the funding round. It's like the classical one is that you end up with, some stress at the end because you feel that, you should have started earlier, get pressured. You would like to close it sooner than later. So that's a good learning. So start typically a couple of months before you actually think you need to start. Also, this whole thinking about being selective about who you're talking to. That's one thing. Kind of vet who you're talking to, and check them out. It's very easy to get people excited about certain things or feel that they're excited, and then don't wait for them to. It's like a dating game, as everyone says, right? So I think that what we had good success with also to focus very much on who do we want to bring in, even though you might be in a tight spot, and you might think that you are on the lower end of that negotiation. Think differently. Think that how can I bring these people on? Do I actually want to work with them? Would I, in any other context, would I work with them? And beyond that, can then challenge us in a positive way, not just believe in us, right? I think that's we have also chosen to be very to bring in active investors, so people who are contributing. That depends on your model, of course. What do you want passive money or active money?
Okay, that's great. And then you mentioned, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So the second part is how do you, a couple of learnings from the SaaS. If I could talk to my futures, my past self on this journey, I would say, hire the leaders that, the expensive leaders sooner than you think. Don't think about building your team bottom up when you get the funding. Think about bringing people in and then let them decide who to bring in, because they have the experience. They should know who to bring in. I think that I wish I knew that before. We've been extremely fortunate with the people we have brought in, but I wish we could have brought them in sooner. Let's put it that, the leadership. And I think that, for me, it becomes more and more obvious that I wish I could have spent more time early on in defining the vision and the mission and the mantra and the kind of the DNA of the companies, because that as we are growing now, it's really obvious that we need to be the storytellers. We need to keep on iterating. It's almost like being a politician. You need to say the same thing again and again and again and again to different people so they can connect the dots, right? I think that is, as we grow the SaaS business, things are moving so fast. That you have to be the person that, the spider in the web, if you like, that brings everything together in a kind of a narrative form.
That's great. And I love that, bring those leaders in sooner, let them build the team, from the bottom up. And then that's a great piece of advice. So tell us, what does, because you see a lot of founders who, they're that sole person at the top, sole decision maker, and all that weight is on them. So tell us a little bit about how your executive team looks. Do you have C-level titles, VP level titles who are on your exec team supporting you?
Yeah, we have director level and one VP level. So we have VP of sales. We have, and that was coincidental that we had a person that was an advisor for the board. He suggested himself to come in as a VP. He's, definitely one of the best sales people I've ever had and dreamt of having. So it was just a golden opportunity we could not pass. Besides that, we have directors for finance. We have it for marketing. We have for products. We are bringing in currently a director of science. And then also we have people and culture director as well. And then VP of sales. So these are, the roles that we currently have. I think that when it comes to, you asked a question about that. I think that we brought in, I can't remember that.
Yeah, no, that was great. It's just, because that really helps founders who they're thinking about that first, C-level or VP level hire. And it's like, where do I go? How do I do this? Is it too early? And just that struggle of how I build out that executive team to help them then scale. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what we did for some of them is that they started as head of, and then so they were heading a unit, and given certain types of commitments and goals for them to achieve within a limited time, they would move up to a director level. And then we do the same thing to move up to a VP level and then to a C-suite level. So, or if they also choose, sometimes they say, hey, this is great for me. I am where I want to be. We're very aware of I'm not sure if you're aware of the Peter principle. So basically you can upgrade people to actually failure to sometimes, just because they're performing well at one level. You should not automatically just upgrade them to the next level, because maybe they're not, made for that. Maybe that's not their area of expertise or where they want to be themselves.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that, one thing that is very special in Scandinavia, so, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, is that we have a very kind of flat org structure. So although when you look at the org structure, it's very it's hierarchical, but that's more like how we set it up. The actual day-to-day decision-making, and it's much more kind of an even playing field, and everyone can actually chip in. So I think that philosophy, especially when we're moving fast and we're growing very fast, we need to have communication, and we don't want to build walls. We don't want to kind of build these kind of communication walls between teams, for example. We want them to actually talk to each other, both horizontally, but also vertically. So that's kind of a very important thing when we're scaling.
Yeah, appreciate that advice, that insight. So let's wrap up here. So what's next for your company? What's exciting that's coming up?
Yeah, we already now. So one thing, as I mentioned, kind of we're predicting kind of attention. So this whole kind of prediction machine is of course some of the stuff we're really excited about. So what we are already now having in beta, but we're releasing very soon, is what we call sentiment AI. So not only predicting where people will look, but also how they will respond emotionally. What comes with that is the next generation of our AI tool. So instead of just kind of predicting a score, so how engaging will people find this, or how clear will they find it, or will they be more likely to buy something, for example. It will also, we're taking a next step that is called explainable AI. So that's more like you ask the AI model to basically come up with a heat map to explain itself. So what is contributing in this ad, for example, to increase or decrease engagement? So as a designer, not only do you get a score from 0 to 100, so let's say you get an engagement score of 74%. Well, what does that mean? What should I do about it, right? So now you get a heat map on top of that shows areas that you can work with to improve the score. So that's kind of the explainable AI, if you like. That's the second generation of our tool, so to speak. So that we're very excited about that, because that's a kind of a game changer, and it all happens in 15 seconds, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. That's great. Well, Thomas, really appreciate you sharing your story, your background, and a little bit about what Neurons is doing. So if the listeners want to learn more, where can they find you online? So
the company website is called neuronsinc.com. And you can also follow us on as Neurons or Neurons Inc. on LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. You can see me either on LinkedIn, or you can find me at thomasramsøy.com.
Okay.
oy.com at the end.
Okay, OY. So Neurons Inc., NEURONSINC.com. So check Thomas out there. And Thomas, really appreciate your insights and your stories today. Thanks.
I love that, Ben. Thanks very much.